Hey guys, my name is Ryan Davis, as he said. I'm finishing my MBA in a couple weeks, which is crazy, but thank you. One of the, I guess, the more important things about me is I try very hard and fail many times to not be that guy. And you could take that however you want. Being that guy is fun sometimes, and sometimes it's just not fun. But I do have a few things that I want to speak to you about. Today, I want to talk to you about having, that picture makes you laugh every time. Having a love affair with failure. Now, what I want to touch on with love affair failure in this brief time period that I have is talking about some perceptions that we have regarding creativity and its role in education, its importance to education, speaking to some of the norms that we have placed on ourselves or we've been socially engineered to believe about success, and then talking a little bit about myself and my constant process of bumbling around from failure to failure and somehow being successful at it while I have no idea what I'm doing and try to have an idea what I'm doing. So we'll speak a little bit on that. A few quotes for you. Tom Peters says, our educational thinking is concerned with what is, not necessarily good at designing what can be. I don't know if any of you have heard of Tom Peters. He's written a lot on education. And Sir Ken Robinson, who's written a lot about everything that has value, has a quote that says, creativity is as important as literacy. Now, I hold that quote on the same level as Albert Einstein's saying that says imagination is more important than knowledge. For this reason, that both statements speak to what we view as taking information and regurgitating it versus taking information and actually applying it and extending it beyond what it's initially stated to be, and actually making an impact with the things that we read, the numbers that we see. How do we actually interpret those things? I think that's really critical to how we view education, because it creates a path of academic success that involves simply regurgitating knowledge. And in that path, it creates a belief that academic intelligence or consistent, perceptions of academic intelligence is almost synonymous with risk aversion. And I happen to view that as problematic. But clearly we know a few things about creativity. We know that hobbies are valuable. We know that creative outlets allow an escape. They de-stress you. There's like the business manager who paints or plays music. For some people, those things become a new pathway, a new career path, and do really cool things. They are leaving their, hardcore analytics job or anything like that and do something very creative. And sometimes they don't. We know that metropolitan cities can thrive from the arts, and in many cases in cities such as Austin and Athens, there's a huge chunk of the economy that benefits specifically from creative activities that allow people to have something different and engaging to do on a regular basis. And finally, we know that creativity is an essential problem, is essential in problem solving. My apologies. My question is, what's the next step in moving beyond these assumptions that we have about creativity? Thankfully, thanks to Joshua White, who spoke to a lot of things that I was speaking about, I don't have to get sentimental and tell you sad stories that have cool, very awesome results, because he did that already. So I'm just going to be really positive, and hopefully you won't be annoyed by my positivity. And it starts here with Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Now, the reason I chose Goku from Dragon Ball Z, there are two reasons, actually. Dragon Ball Z is the anime that got me hooked on anime. It's very near and dear to my heart. Back when I watched Toonami, who I now work with a little bit, but that's another thing. Goku has probably the best clueless face of any cartoon character or fictional character, I think, of all time. So I felt like this picture was very adequate in summing up my cluelessness, or my feeling of cluelessness, with regards to answering that question of what is the next step. So I apologize if you expected me to have some really cool answer about what's the next step of moving in beyond our thoughts and perceptions of creativity. I do have an idea, though, and that's listening to your heart. Please do not roll your eyes at the cliche sound of listening to your heart. I think if I had $1 for every time somebody said that to me, I would probably be rich or have enough money to buy a very expensive weapon and shoot that person. Our passions don't complement our studies all the time. And as I said, we've been socially engineered. We're driven to follow this model of success that is very good. It is not problematic at all, really. It works. You know, you make good grades, you get a job, you work your way up the system, you save some money, you make some investments. You're 40 or 50, you've actually got some money, you've got a family, you're an active public citizen, you can contribute to things, you can give to people, you can give to the homeless. That's all great. It's all really, really, really great. But the problematic piece of it is that many times in chasing academic success or chasing monetary success, our passions become a risk. And when I say passion, I don't want you to take that word lightly. By passion, I mean who you really are and what is really inside of you. What is really inside of you is a risk. And I don't think if you get anything from me today besides judging my goofiness and my apparent cluelessness, is that many times you have to take a risk and stare failure in the face to really see what's really inside of you and take that thing somewhere. So this is just in case that answer wasn't adequate for you. I hope you're not as angry as this person. Moving on. What happens when you apply the rigid academic discipline to the creative passion? The reason I asked that so specifically on its own little slide and everything is because we have heard many people talk about applying the creativity to the rigid discipline, applying the art to the chemistry or the med school or the business, the analytics, bringing that creativity into your problem solving. But I think, you know, some of the people I mentioned have talked about that. Tom Peters or Ken Robinson, Daniel Pink with Drive. You know, a lot of great thinkers have spoken to that. But what about bringing the rigid discipline back to the creative passion, which is something that I have been exploring a little bit, and I'll tell you a little bit of why. This is what happened for me. Now, I do this thing where I'm a musician. In undergrad, I did a lot of music production, media production, arranging, play hip-hop, play a lot of jazz, trombone, rap, sing, that sort of thing. And I kind of had this thing I kind of slept on, didn't let anybody see. I rapped about video games and anime. This was fun. I really like anime, really like video games, I really like rap. Seems like perfect combination, right? So I did that. One day, first semester of grad school, I did this rap on Skyrim because I was excited about it, and it got like 80,000 views on YouTube. And I was like, wow, people like it. Okay, well, that's cool. Slept on it a little bit, made some videos here and there. Comes internship time for me getting my good MBA internship. I had two things lined up. I had an internship with an online web startup that was based out of Silicon Valley, and I was offered an internship by this media entertainment consulting firm in New York. They offered it to me at the end of May, and apparently I beat out some people from New York, NYU, Columbia type deal to get this internship. But since I was already out of school, I could express concerns about money, paying 2 rents because it was too late possibly for me to sublease. They went with somebody else instead of talking to me about money. Then the web startup failed. So I'm left without an internship for the summer, and I'm supposed to have one. What do I do? So since I'm doing this nerd rap thing already, I decided to take my market research and analytics, use those things to optimize my social media presence, and do some content marketing with my content, with myself as a brand, I guess. And I quickly became very obsessed with that. And this sounds very goofy, and it is, but it was also a difficult process because I recognized it was valuable, but I also immediately recognized I couldn't tell very many people about it because A, it sounds crazy, and B, it sounds very whimsical, and C, Ryan, why the heck are you spending so much time rapping about video games and then trying to market it on the internet? Really? And it really, you know, on one sense it's funny, and it is funny actually all the time, but there is a piece of it that hurts when people who have seen all of your accomplishments and who know you and know that you've basically accomplished everything you set your mind through, even though you may have crashed and burned and done plenty of stupid things along the way, know that you can be successful in just about anything you do, question the crazy idea that you have. That hurts. It throws you into kind of a little bit of an inner crisis. But, you know, as Joshua said earlier, you push forward when things like that happen. And I guess I recognized that I had to experiment because it was the only option that I had. I didn't have an internship. So there are a lot of failures I had in this process, but the main thing that I failed at was stamping this passion out of my system because that was my initial intent. My initial intent was to fail at this music thing so that I could get it out of my system because I was viewing it as a thing that could potentially derail my career success as an MBA graduate, riding up the corporate ladder. What happens if this passion stays there? Am I going to have a midlife crisis when I'm 30-something and I have kids? Hopefully that's not my midlife. But when I'm 30-something and I have kids and I look back and say, I never tried to do music, and I freak out about it. So why don't I really try to do it now, even though I have no money and no backing and all that stuff, and see what happens? I thought it was going to fail and I was going to stamp it out of my system. It actually kind of took off a little bit. This is one of my favorite quotes. Winston Churchill says, "Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm." Now, I've done this before where I push myself to my limits intentionally, even though it's dangerous. It sounds kind of stupid. I did it in Creative Campus. I said I wanted to go until I crashed and I burned. And in trying to do that, I crashed and I burned. But the thing that you realize when you're pushing for failure, when you actually embrace the idea of yourself failing, is that you don't really have any limits. And you don't really recognize that until you take what's inside of you, you embrace the failure, and you pursue it like crazy, because when you embrace failure, you pursue what's inside of you with such reckless abandon that you have no choice but to see it until either A, it fails, and you can't do it anymore, or B, it goes somewhere. And in my case, it seems to be going somewhere. While I'm somehow, making A's in my MBA classes, except Dr. Dulix, who gave me a B, even though he loved my communication. But that's okay. I forgive you, Dr. Dulix. This is the Bill Gates quote. I just had to throw it in there because you can't have a thing about failure without Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. You can read that if you want. I'm not really going to talk about it because everybody talks about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Boom. Hope you can read quickly. This is a little bit about what's happened in this journey that I've had since this summer. These are my YouTube subscribers. These are my video views. I have 6-figure online music impressions. I have a lot of impressions on SoundCloud and everything else I'm on. I don't remember everything that I'm on. I get these YouTube messages every day with people talking about how they feel validated by the fact that I actually rap about something that's not, degrading to women and somewhat intelligent and validates them as nerds that play video games. And, I get messages about people teachers letting kids play my music in the classrooms. And I release these free mixtapes and people pay for them anyway. And all this is very meaningful stuff to me. But then when I turn around and put it on a resume, and actually when I say I use business analytics and social media marketing to build a 6-figure online music following, people actually want to talk to me a little bit more. So that's helped out a little bit with the job search also. That's pretty cool. But I think even taking this beyond that, I've been covering a lot of nerd media outlets. This is from Arcade Sushi, a well-known online gaming outlet. This is Kotaku, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, online video game journalism publications in the world. That's happened twice. It's the Jace Hall show. Show used to be on G4 TV. This is Kotaku again. This means a lot to me, but there are a lot of opportunities and conversations I haven't put onto this thing, but I'm having conversations with people that run the shows that I watched when I was a child, and I'm not sure if it'll ever turn into a career opportunity, but it sure seems like at some point in time it will, even if it's not immediately. So in saying that, I just can't help but talk about and think about this recent lesson that I'm learning, that life is not linear, and that you pursuing your passion is not going to derail your career path, and you pursuing your career path is not going to derail your passion, because life isn't linear. It's all a process, and in the words of a great woman by the name of Ann Powers, who told me this very recently, you just need to pick your staircase and then walk up it. And that's a risk. But if you embrace failure, you'll find out that you don't have any limits. 2 more things from you from me. 3 more, actually. The words of Mike Murdock, who's a relatively well-known pastor out of Texas, you will never obtain what you're unwilling to pursue. If you never take the risk of pursuing or investigating what's really inside of you, you can't ever really get what you're trying to get, and it'll always just be an idea. You know, it's never so stupid that you shouldn't try it, and when you try it, you better freaking try it. Like, you can't halfway try something that burns inside of you for no apparent reason. Like, why the hell is it there? You can't do that. You got to give it everything you've got. And failure is not final. Life's not linear. Failure is not final. And if anything, failure is the beginning. You should probably fear your success more than you feel your failure, because your success is going to test you more. Your failure is going to give you an opportunity to figure out, A, what doesn't work, and B, where your thought process can go that eliminates that thing that doesn't work.